So another one of the famous talks that the Rebbe gave was about bringing Moshiach through Simcha. So Simcha in general is something which was very, very much emphasized by the Baal Shem Tov. And in general, all Hasidim put a very big emphasis on Simcha and joy and being happy, to the extent that this is actually one of the reasons why there was so much opposition against the Hasidim. Because people always thought of spirituality, righteousness, fear of God, always leads to being very serious, very heavy, scared, afraid of punishment, sad because we have no Beis Hamikdash, and to be happy seemed to be not being truly responsible to mitzvahs, not really being aware of Hashem. They looked at it as being almost frivolous, irresponsible, and so on. But there's a huge difference between simcha and frivolous. They're two ends of the spectrum. And there's a lot that's been talked about why simcha, and what's so important about simcha, and how come it's so much emphasized in the teachings of Chassidus. And we spoke about this in our classes, the Chassidic way of life. But this is something a little bit different. That in addition to the fact that in general, Chassidus emphasizes joy, there's something specific about simcha, that this is something which hastens the coming of Mashiach. Again, we're looking for things, which mitzvahs or which practices have in them the property that this specifically will hasten Mashiach's coming. And here, it's a talk the Rebbe once gave, that through simcha, we can make this happen. So let's go into what the connection is. And it's a talk the Rebbe gave in the year 1988, 5748. And what you're reading here is just parts of that talk. So we're starting from the second paragraph. The concept of simcha shares a connection to the future redemption. Why? There are a number of reasons for that. First of all, it is in the future redemption that we will experience the complete level of simcha. At that time, all undesirable influences will be negated, as reflected in the verse. There's a pasuk that says, and Hashem will wipe away tears from every face, which means that all negative influences will be transformed into good. So even a person that's happy today, there's no way a person could be 100% happy, because there's always something that's not okay somewhere, someplace. So if a person has money, there might be something problem with health. They have health, there might be a problem with money. If they have both, they might have a problem socially with their friends. If they have that, they might have a problem with their family. If they have that, they might have a problem with their work, with their employer. If everything is perfect, which is almost impossible, everything is perfect, I'm upset because my neighbor or my friend or my cousin or my uncle or someone in my family is not feeling well. It's impossible in the time of Geula to say, I'm 100% happy. There's gonna be something out there which is gonna make me unhappy. The only time that it's possible to envision 100% happiness when Mashiach comes, because then everything will be good physically, everything will be good spiritually. That goodness will not be selected, it'll be for everyone who was in the world at the time. All men, all women, all children, everybody will be happy. So therefore, there will be absolutely no reason for the opposite of happiness. And that's what it means. At that time, Hashem will wipe away all tears. It doesn't mean that there'll be tears and Hashem will have to wipe it for us. It means it'll be such a good time, there won't be any reason for tears because everything will be so good. So number one, the word simcha and the time of redemption, they're connected because that's really the only time that you can have the ultimate happiness. Let's go to page 108. Continue. So this will greatly increase the simcha we will experience, enabling it to reach the consummate perfection. And therefore, the return is to Eretz Yisrael when the book of the Nevi and the prophets describe how the Jews will leave the exile and go back to Israel. It says they'll be crowned with eternal joy. So in other words, joy is one of the things that defines that era. Another thing, another point, the relationship between concept of simcha and redemption is also alluded to by the fact that the roots of the word simcha and the root of the word Moshiach are actually the same three letters, Shin, Mem, Ches. In Hebrew, it's these three letters that are the root of the word Simcha, the Shin, the Mem, and the Ches. And these are the same three letters that are the root of the word Mashiach. So one of the reasons for that is because the ultimate joy will only be when Mashiach comes. But there's another explanation. To explain the connection between the two, Simcha breaks through all barriers. There's a phrase in Hebrew, Simcha Poretz Geder, which means joy breaks all barriers. What does that mean? Generally speaking, it means that every person has personal barriers, meaning certain personal limitations. This I'm in the mood of doing, this I'm not in the mood of doing. You ask somebody, could you please get up and make a public speech? Me, public speech? I can't speak publicly. You want someone to do something, and very often they will tell you, that's not me, I can't do this. When people are very happy, a lot of the things that they normally don't do, they will do because they're so happy that they're able to just step out of themselves, step out of their own limitations. You find people that are normally so quiet, they'll never speak, and they certainly won't speak publicly, but if they're very happy, they're going to talk, you'll have to like shut them down and stop talking because they're so excited and they'll talk and talk and talk. And many other examples, it's brought down that, for example, kings, people who are rulers of country, when they had a simcha, let's say their son or daughter was getting married, they would pardon prisoners. That's probably a little bit connected to even things the way they run today. But in those days, it was when there was a simcha. Because I'm happy, I want everybody to be happy. I want to take down the barriers from other people, of course, in a limited way. But when a person is happy, they're able to step out of themselves. We find that people, when they experience a simcha, very often, that's when they make a decision about Yiddishkeit, to go forward, to do something they couldn't get themselves to do. And this happened more than once, but I remember there was a student here in school, and it happened more than once. She actually ended up going from here to Tzfat, and she got married in Tzfat, and her sister came to the wedding. And at the wedding, she made a resolution, this is the life I want to lead. I came back to America, I joined our school. But what is it about a wedding? Because when a person is happy, if there's something going on in your head and you just can't make that move, you feel a certain way restricted or limited. I'm not ready to take that jump, to take that plunge. When a person's b'simcha, it breaks through those barriers. How is this related to Mashiach? Because this is also the nature of Mashiach. When Mashiach comes, the barriers in the world that we see today, people can't get along, or nations can't get along, or family members can't get along, or just personal barriers. People have barriers that they can't do what they're meant to do, what they're supposed to do. Either they're lazy or they have no self-confidence, whatever it is. When Mashiach comes, all those barriers will be lifted. So Mashiach breaks barriers. In fact, Mashiach is a descendant of Peretz. Anyone remember who Peretz was? It's in the Chumash. It was all the way in the beginning of the year, so I can understand that it's hard to remember. Okay, now you did. So there was somebody called Yehuda. You heard that name? He was one of the 12 tribes. And he had twins. One's name was Zerach, and one's name was Peretz. With him was the story in the Chumash that he met this woman. He didn't know who she was. In reality, it was his daughter-in-law. His son had passed away, and his daughter-in-law And then he lived with her, and they had twins, and these twins were these two children, Peretz and Zarach. Why did he call this child Peretz? The word Peretz and Peretz in Hebrew means, like we said before, breaking barriers. What happened was that the twins were born, and one child was about to come out first. The other baby sort of went ahead of the first baby, and it came out first. So it says when the baby was born, he said, why did you sort of break the rules? You went ahead when you were supposed to be behind. You were supposed to be second. And because of that, he called him Peretz. We know that names in the Torah, especially names that were given by great righteous people, weren't just random, but the names sort of define and express the character of that child that was born. So when we talk about names like Moshe, names like Miriam, there's so much commentary on the relationship between the name and the person. So here too, this child, Peretz, was the child that gave birth to another child, and eventually gave birth to Rus, and eventually she brought into the world King David, David HaMelech. So it means that David HaMelech, and in the future, Moshiach, are descendants of Yehuda, the tribe of Yehuda, but which son? The son which is called Peretz. And what was unique about him? That he broke the sort of the order, the normal order of things, and that's Mashiach, the one who breaks through. As it says, Mashiach is sometimes referred to as the one who breaks. There's a pasuk that says, and the one who breaks through will ascend before them. As the Jews will be leaving exile, the one who breaks through them will be leading them. So here we have a relationship between Mashiach and Simcha. Simcha breaks barriers, and Mashiach will be breaking barriers. Simcha has these letters that are the root of the word, and Mashiach has the same three letters because it's all connected.
I have a question.
Yeah.
How can we instill this idea in the children that we raise? Because when I was in Bethurka in high school, I saw a lot of my classmates going off the derech and not seeing a value in Judaism. And when I think more about it, I think that they viewed it as being restrictive rather than such a beautiful thing, connection to have, and blah, blah, blah.
Right.
And I feel like that could have been resolved if they had Simcha in their
right. So that's your answer.
But their parents were Chabad, and then into, so how can we ensure that our children have Simcha in what they do? Because when you tell somebody to do something, or you try to teach it to them, there could be some pushback, because children are a bit quick-witted.
Right. Well, children don't want restrictions and there's certain children that by nature just love to do everything that's right, love to do what their parents want, and some children by nature want to be their own person. Most children want that. This is mine, and they want it to be the way they want it to be. And in fact, if the parents will tell them to do something just because you told me to do A, I want to do B. Sometimes they say it openly, sometimes they don't say it that way. But I think the answer is very simple. This has to be emphasized more than emphasizing punishment or the heaviness of the restriction or screaming and shouting and how dare you. The emphasis should be more about the beauty, the advantage. They give a mashal, just to answer your question. There's a mashal about a person that was working in the construction crew. And he was at the bottom of a hill. They had to put sand into a wheelbarrow and push the sand up to the top of the hill. And there was a truck. They had to dump the sand onto the truck. He's going up and down, up and down. As he's digging the sand in the bottom of the hill, one of those lucky days, he hits something hard. He takes a look. There's a box. He opens the box, and it's full of gems, full of diamonds. He found the treasure. He's excited, puts it into the wheelbarrow. Of course, doesn't want anyone to know what he found. He covers it with sand, and he's schlepping it up the thing. Now, it's a very hot day, hot, humid day, and he has to stop every few inches to take a drink of water, wipe his forehead from all the perspiration. And imagine that someone actually went ahead a little bit. The story is that he's going up the hill. He was carrying rocks, not rocks and sand. And then someone approached him and said, would you mind if I put my rocks on your wheelbarrow? And he said, would I mind? Of course I would mind. I'm not having such a hard time schlepping my own. You schlepped your own. And he was very upset at the fact that he even thought that it's okay to put his rocks into my wheelbarrow. The story is that the next week he found his treasure, found a lot of precious stones under the ground, diamonds and gems, put it into his wheelbarrow, covered it with some. Somebody else also found gems, and they also found these precious rocks, but they had no idea that it was obviously not too smart. They had no idea that these are valuable, these are something which are worth a lot of money. It's heavy. So he walks over to him and said, would you mind if I put these stones into your wheelbarrow? And he smiles and says, no, I wouldn't mind at all. Isn't it right? Put it into my wheelbarrow. Not only that, if you find more, bring it only to me. Don't give it to anybody else. He didn't want to let it know that it's expensive, but he said, give it to me. So what happened? Last week, he was going up the same hill. It's equally hot. He has to stop to take a drink. And he's schlepping it. And when he offers to bring these stones into his wheelbarrow, he's furious. He has a fit of anger. This week, he's happy, he's excited. He actually tells him to bring more. And the answer is, last week, these were ordinary rocks. And this week, they're very valuable rocks. So the mashal is that when you look at Yiddishkeit, just from the outside, what you see is restrictions. You're not allowed to do this on Shabbos. You're not allowed to do this on Rosh Hashanah. You're not allowed to do this on Yom Kippur. You must do this on Pesach, and you must do that every day, and you must go here, and you must eat this, and you can't wear that. So you see restrictions, rocks. When you learn Torah, and especially if you're studying Chassidus, and you're learning more about the value of it and the purpose of it, and what you're accomplishing, and you understand that these are all very valuable and precious, then not only you don't resent it, on the contrary, you embrace it and you're excited about it. So therefore, it's true that Simcha is one of the most important. Many people who were interviewed after they left the fold, so to speak, they said that they found that Yiddishkeit was just about fear and about punishment and about restrictions. They never saw the other side of the coin about the beauty and the joy in Torah mitzvahs. So yes, that is definitely part of it. Now there's another thing which could be mentioned a little bit later, how being the Simcha brings Mashiach. The fact that we're in Galus is also a barrier. Hashem set certain barriers. And that is that unless you improve this, and that, you can't go out of Galus. You have to be in. When we are besimcha down here in a positive way, not frivolous and wild, but true joy, and we're able to break through our own personal barriers, we know that whatever we do here is reflected up there with Hashem. So Hashem, we create joy in the heaven, in the spiritual realm, of course, in a figurative way. And that also causes the same thing to happen, that the barriers are lifted. And Eibishter Hashem transcends his barriers that he created, so to speak. And therefore, when those barriers are transcended, then redemption comes, because there are no longer barriers, nothing holding us back that we don't deserve to have Mashiach. But here it goes on to explain more. On the verse, Tzion, there are none who seek her out. That's a pasuk, a verse. Our sages comment that this indicates that one should seek her out, meaning implying we must demand the redemption. We can't just sit back and wait for Hashem to take us out of Golus. Hashem wants us to be proactive and doing something to seek out to bring Mashiach. We must seek out joy, including the ultimate joy, the joy of redemption, which means we must demand that Hashem grant us this absolute joy, which is going to be in the era of redemption. And the Rebbe said, I therefore offer the following suggestion and request, that we increase our rejoicing with the intent of bringing Mashiach and the true and ultimate redemption. And it explains, throughout the years of exile, Jewish people have longed for the redemption, prayed for it every day. Surely the tzaddikim, the righteous people, the Nesiim, which means the leaders of the Jewish people, who had an overwhelmingly powerful desire for Mashiach, they surely did everything they can to bring Mashiach, and they davened. It's related in the annals of our national history that some actually sacrifice their lives to force Mashiach to come earlier, although there's a specific warning against it. And you might remember we did this in Gemara, that there's certain times designated for Mashiach, and don't push it, don't force the issue. But there are certain tzaddikim that their desire for Mashiach was so overwhelming and so strong that they tried through spiritual ways to force the issue and bring Mashiach earlier, and unfortunately it didn't have a happy ending. Nevertheless, these earlier activities cannot be compared to the storm for the coming of Mashiach aroused by the previous Rebbe with his cry, with his declaration more than 40 years ago. This was said in 88. La'alta l'tshuva, la'alta l'geula. The Frierdiker Rebbe came out with a declaration, announcement in newspapers, and he had a slogan. The slogan was, La'alta l'tshuva, la'alta, this was during the war. Do tshuva immediately, and that'll bring immediate redemption. Moreover, this is not considered forcing redemption, for the time of the redemption has arrived. As the previous Rebbe stated many times, all the service necessary has been completed. All that is necessary now is to polish the buttons and to await the coming of Mashiach. Anyone heard that expression before? Polish the buttons? It's sort of a metaphor that we're in the army, I'm wearing my uniform, I have my cap, I have my entire uniform, everything is ready. One more thing that needs to be done is to have these silver or gold buttons. I have to polish the buttons, a little something. So the previous Rebbe said that everything has been done. There's still something that still needs to be done, but that would be compared to polishing the buttons. And just to make a point that in later years, the Rebbe said, we did that already also. That even the polishing the buttons, which is whatever little thing needs to be done, has also been completed. To explain in a more specific manner, for several generations, even prior to the previous Rebbe, special efforts were made to bring about Mashiach coming, including, and with a specific emphasis, on revealing the teachings of Hasidus. As we know, that when the teachings of Hasidus are revealed, that hastens Mashiach's coming. For the reply to the Baal Shem Tov's question, when are you coming? Mashiach answered, page 110, when the well springs of your teaching spread outward. So afterwards, these teachings were expanded and developed through the teachings of Chabad. The Baal Shem Tov started it. Then the Alter Rebbe developed it more, enabled people to understand and grasp the concepts in an intellectual way. To cite the analogy offered by the Alter Rebbe, the precious stone in the king's crown has been crushed and mixed with water, so it can be poured into the mouth of the king's son to save his life. I'll explain it because we probably spoke about this in the beginning of the year. There were those that argued that the deep secrets of Chassidus have always been concealed from people. So how is it that now we're spiritually on a lower level than the earlier sages who were much greater than us? They didn't deserve to study the hidden secrets that we do. How does that make sense? So this once was explained by this analogy that there was a king, that his son, the prince, was very sick. And all the doctors, they got the biggest doctors to examine him and do the research, and they all said there's nothing they can do. And there were these healers that said there's only one thing that can save his life. And that is, there's a certain diamond, precious stone, that if you take this stone and you sort of squeeze it or grind it till it becomes liquid, and he drinks the liquid, it has a property that it'll heal him. But it's very rare. It's very hard to find such a stone. There was a stone. Where was it? It was one of the stones in the king's crown. And not only one of the stones, this was the crown jewel, as you call it. If you know about kings and crowns, there was always a certain jewel which was like the center jewel in the entire crown. And that gave the entire beauty to the crown. So therefore the king said, let's keep trying other methods. Came a point that the doctors told the king, looks like this is it. He doesn't have much more to live. And then he said, take the crown jewel and squeeze it to liquid and give it to him. So the doctor said, but Your Majesty, at this point, he can't even open his lips to drink, no point. So the king said, doesn't matter, just take it, do it anyway, and pour it on his lips, and maybe a drop will get in, and that drop will bring him back to life. So the same is here, that the answer was given that years ago, people were at a higher level spiritually. So Hashem wasn't, so to speak, ready to sort of allow his crown jewel to be out there, which is the hidden secrets of Torah. And it was kept and reserved only for selected few in a generation. But once, as we said this once before, that every generation post based on Mikdash destruction is weaker than the one before. So when the Baal Shem Tov said, now that we see that the generation is weaker than ever, Hashem says that the most important thing to me is that my child should continue to live. So take the crown jewel of Torah, which are the hidden secrets of Torah, and let them out into the public, let everyone have access to it. And even if it's not the way it should be, just a drop will get in, that drop will revive them and will be able to give them back their life. So therefore, we've already done that. From generation to generation, the Rabbeim have continued and expanded their efforts to spread the well-things experience. These efforts reached their zenith in the time of the previous Rebbe, who actually began to spread them in an incomparable manner, reaching to every location in the world, locale, extending the wellspring of Chassidus to the furthest possible places. His efforts included the translation of Hasidic in other languages, foreign languages, which means not only was it translated into Yiddish, so simple people could understand it, because Hebrew is more of a scholarly language for us, and Yiddish is more the spoken language by most Jews, so it's more simple. So it was translated in Yiddish, but also to other language, secular language, that anyone could understand it. Nevertheless, in these earlier generations, even in the beginning of the previous Rebbe's times, the fundamental emphasis was on spreading the well springs of Chassidus, but not so much on bringing Moshiach. Even when people studied Chassidus, they studied Chassidus to have a deeper knowledge of Hashem, to refine our character traits, so it will enhance our davening, it will enhance the way we observe mitzvahs. The emphasis was not study Chassidus to bring Moshiach. It was known that the object of these endeavors was to bring Mashiach, and from time to time it was talked about, but this purpose was not so pronounced. After the previous Rebbe issued the call, La'alta l'tshuva, La'alta l'geula, and continuing to present day by day contrasts, the emphasis has been placed on bringing Mashiach, to the extent that every phase of our efforts in our divine service, including the endeavors to spread the wellsprings of Chassidus, must be permeated with the intent that through this will bring Mashiach. Because this is the mission of our generation, to actually bring Mashiach. Now, many decades have passed since the times of the previous Rebbe, since he said, La'alta l'tshuva, La'alta l'geula. And since that storm of activities initiated to bring Mashiach, so many years passed, and nevertheless, Mashiach still hasn't come. There's no explanation for this. Our sages said all the appointed times of Mashiach coming have already passed. So we can't say we're waiting for a certain time. Those times that have been designated have already passed. Even though the Gemara says we're waiting for Yidden to do tshuva, that's also done. Yidden already have done tshuva. Let's turn to page 112. What is left to do? Tehillim, which is Psalms of King David. King David is actually the king, which is the origin and the source of Mashiach, and we're reading his book of Tehillim. That was also done in abundance. People had Farbrengens, which is Abbas Yisrael, on numerous occasions. And for 7 generations since the Baal Shem Tov, endeavors have been made that have enjoyed tremendous success. One might say that you can do more, okay, but there's no limit to what you can do. I'm skipping a paragraph. And so it is natural to ask, what can we do to bring Mashiach that has not been done yet? In reply, the Rebbe says, this is the Rebbe's suggestion. that the divine service necessary now is the expression of joy for the sake of bringing Mashiach. Now, joy breaks through barriers, including the barriers of exile. Moreover, Simcha has a unique potential to bring about the redemption, as explained in a series of discourses, which are called Samach to Samach. It's all about Simcha and joy. And over there it explains how joy here creates joy there. And breaking the barriers here will break the barriers up there, and that'll bring Mashiach. And that mimer, going to page 113, continues to explain that this essential joy can be aroused by Simcha experiencing connection with the mitzvah. Indeed, the Simcha reaches higher than the mitzvah itself, precipitating the expression of the essential joy of the era of redemption. So in the previous generations, people surely experienced Simcha, so what's so unique about what we're saying? But the difference is like this. For sure they had Simcha when they served Hashem, because it says, serve Hashem with joy. Nevertheless, in previous generations, the emphasis was on the service, and the service was infused with happiness. So a person davened with Simcha, put on tefillin with Simcha, observed Shabbos with Simcha, celebrated a Yontif with Simcha. But the suggestion here is a little different. To use Simcha as a catalyst to bring Mashiach, by contrast, puts the emphasis on the Simcha itself, not just the mitzvah, but the Simcha itself in its purest form, that if we emphasize Simcha to bring Mashiach, this will hasten the coming of Mashiach. Skipping another paragraph because of the time. One might ask, why in the previous generation didn't they do that? Especially after the previous Rebbe declared the Alta L'Tshuva, the Alta L'Geula, was there not an emphasis on bringing Mashiach through Simcha? Everything possible was done, so why didn't they do it before? Again, to refer to the analogy of the precious jewel in the king's crown, that was crushed so it could be able to be poured into the mouth of the king's son. So that was already done. It was spread into the rest of the world, 70 languages. Even a Gentile could study Hasidus today, because it's in English, it's in different languages, and yet why they didn't do this, try to bring Mashiach through Simcha? So the answer to this question is obvious. When the entire Jewish people and the Shekhinah are found in the darkness of exile, and we're really suffering and going through so much pain and grief, the pain of exile prevents us to have a pure, consummate expression of Simcha. But it shouldn't hold us back now, because ultimately we have to bring Mashiach. We have no choice. Moreover, the hardships of exile should not create an impediment for this, since this service is necessary to bring the redemption. The potential is granted to experience such pure. Hashem must give us the strength to have it. But the question is how? He just finished saying that with the darkness of Golas, especially in the previous generation, with such horrific things happening, how could you expect people to be b'simcha? So the answer is, with the grasp of every individual, by meditating on the imminence of Mashiach's coming, and the knowledge that at that time perfect simcha will spread throughout the world, and I believe that his coming is imminent, it's possible to experience a microcosm of this simcha at present. In other words, the point the Rebbe is making is that our confidence and our belief, emunah in Mashiach, should be so strong that we feel the coming of Mashiach is so imminent to the point that we're already in a frame of simcha. I would use the following analogy. Imagine a person is sick and the doctor says there's no cure. The family is watching and the person just wasting away, unfortunately, day by day, getting weaker. And because there's no medication and the weakness is just progressing, the sickness. And then someone comes along and runs into the room, races into the room and says, there's a medicine that they use in Europe, and this medicine is guaranteed, it's 100% guarantee that when the person takes the medicine, they're cured. And now they're giving us permission to bring it in from that country, United States of America. They're making it legal here, and I'll have it in 3 days, and I'll be able to take it. Would the family be happy or sad? Will they be happy because they can have the medicine, or will they be sad, well, but he's still suffering today?
No, they'll be happy. They should be happy.
Right. Now, it's true that they're suffering, and that's still going to be painful to watch a loved one suffering. But the knowledge that in 3 days, I'm going to have something that within 24 hours, this person is going to be totally cured or healed, that should make me besimcha. So in a sense, the Rebbe is saying it's true, it's very dark. There's a lot of things in Geulas today that are, darkness. But on the other hand, if I have the confidence that Moshiach's coming is imminent, to the point that it makes me happy because I know that very soon that time is going to be here where everyone will, all pain and all tears and all suffering will be removed from the world. So therefore, that gives us strength to be besimcha, and that in itself hastens Mashiach's coming. When Hashem sees that we have this confidence and this trust in Mashiach's coming. So, in general, I think you're aware, we spoke about this once before, that even when people write to the Rebbe about personal issues, somebody's sick, something else happened, something's going on in Israel, the Rebbe would always emphasize Simcha. And people would say, but this is ridiculous. How could you be with Simcha when this is happening? But the answer is, but if you would know that the Simcha is actually the remedy to change things, turn things around, to break the barriers, and to make the change, then you would be able to be B'Simcha. So in this case, being B'Simcha comes from the knowledge that very soon we have Mashiach. But when a person is B'Simcha and is able to sort of demonstrate and exhibit such confidence in Hashem, that in itself hastens Mashiach's coming. Yeah. So Simcha can mean 2 things. First thing is not to be depressed. That's number 1. Not to be down, not to be depressed, not to allow feelings of sadness and depression to take me over. That's also a good level, number 1. Number 2, Simcha doesn't always mean I'm dancing and singing 24/7. You'd be exhausted by the end of the day. Simcha means to feel, we spoke about this once before, to feel light and to feel positive and to feel uplifted. Yes, there's certain times when people actually get together, they're singing, they're dancing. It'll be a Shabbos, it'll be a Yontiv, it'll be at a wedding, at a L'chaim, at a Shabbos Kala. So there's some things you do more to dance and to sing. We make a special Farbrengen to celebrate Mashiach's coming, then you do dancing and singing. But in general, it means it's an internal thing that the person feels light and positive and doesn't entertain thoughts of negativity, doesn't have anxiety about the future. On the contrary, they feel happy that very soon everything is going to be in a good place. That's simple.
How they dance by 770, like Kiddush Ohana and Papas, when they do
Those are special times that are designated for Simcha. The Kiddush Levana, even in Shulchan Aruch, it says that it should be with a lot of rejoicing. Not everybody has that custom, but it's been an ancient custom amongst Hasidim in general that by Kiddush Levana there's a lot of dancing. But especially, we had a class just a little while back that Kiddush Levana is one of the times where we focus on Mashiach, because the moon represents the kingdom of King David. So therefore, it's also the joy and the dancing and the singing is because we're saying, just like Hashem takes the moon, that its light became almost diminished completely, and then Hashem renews the moon, that's Hashem will renew us and renew the dynasty of King David. So it makes sense to be dancing and singing. But we don't dance and sing 24/7. Unless you're Mechon Liyadus, that's different. Okay, good Shabbos, everybody.
Thank you, Rabbi. Good Shabbos.